morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, January 16th, 2017. Happy MLK Day to everybody. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by Alex Gleitman. Alex, let's start off with some recruiting, of course. That's right down your wheelhouse. Thayer Munford, 6'5", 320-pound offensive tackle from Massillon, Washington, ranked as the number 31 offensive tackle in the country, number 292 overall player in the country, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. He is a four-star prospect. Give us the latest on Thayer Munford. Do you think that an offer is forthcoming, and do you think he'll be a Buckeye?
Well, first off, let's start with the latest. Ohio State sent Urban Meyer, Greg Stajarwa, and Kevin Wilson to Massillon on Saturday night to watch Thayer Munford play basketball. And you don't send those three guys, for nothing. I mean, obviously they were there. Munford doesn't have an offer yet from Ohio State, but they're certainly taking a really close look. I know Stajarwa liked him a lot since camp last summer. And, they're obviously thinking they're very close to offering him. Urban Meyer wouldn't waste his Saturday night when he could be spending it with his grandson, with his family, going to check out a prospect that they weren't serious about him. So, I think, they were there to check out. You can see a lot when a big guy plays basketball. You can see his feet, his athleticism, his agility, things of that nature. I think they were taking a look at that. I think they wanted to spend time with him, his coaches, his family. Nate Moore, the head coach of Massillon, and his family is actually the legal guardians of Thayer right now. So that was, FaceTime with important people there. And, I think Ohio State is really close to making a decision on Thayer, whether they want to offer. And I think they are going to decide to offer him a scholarship. I think at this point, as I said, you're not there for nothing. And I think with who's left on the board on the offensive line, you're looking nationally trying to flip guys. I'm not sure there's too many people out there that they really realistically can get with just a few weeks until signing day. I think Thayer's a guy they've liked for a while. I think they're going to end up offering him a scholarship. I think he's going to accept it. That's the one he's been waiting for. Otherwise, he would have just committed to Kentucky or Pittsburgh, one of those two programs likely already. So I think, he's going to commit once he gets the offer. I think they'll publicly and officially seal the deal whenever he takes an official visit, whether it's this coming weekend, whether it's the weekend after. But I think at the end of the day, come February 1st on signing day, Ohio State is going to have Thayer Munford in their class of 2017.
What's the latest with four-star defensive tackle Jay Tufele?
He was at BYU this weekend for an official visit. I still think it's Utah and Ohio State, even if BYU's in there. And ultimately the decision is, do you stay home and play for either Utah or BYU, or do you go out of state and play for Ohio State? And, it's kind of a heart versus head situation. I think obviously Jay knows in his head that Ohio State is the program out of those three that gives him the best opportunity to win national championships, is the best of the three in developing NFL players, and is, while I have tremendous respect for Kyle Whittingham at Utah, and Urban Meyer does as well, kind of one of his proteges, I guess you could call him. I think that, Jay also knows that the best coaching staff is at Ohio State. And, he's got a great relationship with Larry Johnson. But at the same time, he's very close with his family. Utah and BYU are both within under an hour drive from his house. I think Utah's 30 minutes and BYU's 45 minutes or something like that. So his family would have the opportunity to see him play every week. He's got a lot of friends at both of those schools. And, Ohio State, he knows Brandon Bowen. I think that's definitely something that will make him feel comfortable. But at the end of the day, as I said, it's, do you leave home and go to Ohio State, or do you stay home and go to Utah or BYU? Right now, I'm tending to think he stays home and goes to Utah. But, Larry Johnson's working this one hard. Ohio State's gonna, do whatever they can. Send Johnson one time a week. I think they still have their in-home visit with Urban Meyer, so that will be big. But, Utah's got that official visit. I think it's January 27th weekend. So, they're obviously going to try to close, that a week before National Signing Day, not even a few days before National Signing Day when they have him on campus. And I think that's a pretty big deal. And I think ultimately he's going to end up with Utah. But Ohio State certainly in this and has a great shot.
Buckeyes obviously have 19 commitments. 9 of them have already enrolled, so that's outstanding news. Of the 10 that have not enrolled yet, is there anybody fans should be even a little bit concerned about that might not be in the class? I know there's some concern about Wyatt Davis. He shot that down. He seems to love the Kevin Wilson hiring. What about somebody like Jerron Cage, defensive tackle from Winton Woods? Is there anybody in the class that maybe you're a little bit concerned might not be in the class?
Not really anymore. I think Cage is a guy that people we're concerned about. And he told Bill last week on our site, that he was committed to Ohio State. He wasn't going to visit the other schools and things like that, even though he was thinking about it. And he took his official visit to Ohio State this past weekend. So that's obviously a great sign. I'm sure everything was kind of I's dotted, T's crossed, just to make sure everything was cool. We haven't spoken to Jerome just yet, but I think he would probably be the one that you would have to look at. But outside of that, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, and I don't see anyone really who's you're kind of worried about. But at the same time, I mean, 2 weeks ago or a week ago, even no one was worried about Tyjon Lindsey decommitting from Ohio State. So, and that came as a surprise to Ohio State. So you never know this time of year. Everyone's trying to just fill out their class and throw everything they have at these kids. And, I'm sure Ohio State, they're going to come in with a surprise before National Signing Day. You watch. I mean, Urban Meyer does it every year. And I think, I wouldn't be surprised. I guess I should say you should never be surprised if anyone decommits and goes somewhere else. But I think at this point, other than Cage, I think everyone's pretty solid with the Buckeyes right now.
You mentioned Tyjon Lindsey. Is there any chance Ohio State cooled on him at all, or was this all Tyjon Lindsey's decision?
No, that was Tyjon. Ohio State was surprised. I don't think that they thought that Nebraska wasn't a threat and that they weren't continuing to come after Tyjon, but I think they never thought he was going to decommit. I think they thought, maybe he would take a trip to Nebraska or, something along those lines, host them for an in-home, and that Ohio State would have to fight them out for signing day. But they did not think Tyjon was going to decommit, and that came as a surprise to them. And I think, whatever Keith Williams in Nebraska has been selling Tyjon and other people have been selling Tyjon, he's fine. I mean, he was just convinced of whatever he's been pitched. He's convinced that Ohio State was not the right place for him. And, obviously there's some stuff going on with him and the Martells, and I don't know how much that played into the factor because that's not something new. I mean, that's, from what we've heard, that's something that's been going on for a little bit at least. So I don't think all of a sudden, something with the Martells caused him to change a decision. But, perhaps he's been thinking about this for a while and he's had people in his ear and things like that. And, he decided to go to Nebraska. And that's Ohio State, while they wanted him back, you have to move on. Next man up. It's not about who you don't get and who you miss on. It's about who you get in the class and making sure that they're going to be good players for you. So, best of luck to Tyjon Lindsey. He made the decision that, he feels is best for him, and Ohio State will have to move on, even though they didn't really, that's not the situation they wanted to be in.
It is silly season for recruiting. It is also silly season as far as transfers, rumored transfers, and anything to do with transfers. We know Evan Lyle is going to take his talents to Duke as a fifth-year senior, get a master's degree. That's good for him, get a chance to play as a fifth-year senior, go to a good academic school, get a master's degree. Good for him. He'll be able to play right away since he'll have graduated from Ohio State. What are some other transfers you're hearing probably will happen, might happen? Just let the listeners know what you're hearing, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't like to throw the names out because I don't think it's completely fair to the kids, especially if they don't transfer, and then people are, almost looking at them like this kid stinks or this kid should transfer, whatever however kids look at it. I don't think it's all that fair to throw out names, but there are some names that have emerged, and I'm willing to talk about those as well as some positions I think people need to look at. Kyle Trout's a name that's been thrown out, and Ollie Wasserman of Cleveland.com, he came out and with a report that Trout's transferring, and I checked with sources close to the family and close to Kyle, and from what I found out, that's a little premature. It's certainly a thought. Kyle is thinking about transferring, and I'm told it's probably likely to happen because he's getting his degree in May from Ohio State, so he could go anywhere and have 2 years to play for whatever program he chooses without having to sit out. I know his wife is in the process of applying and getting into medical school. I know she's gotten into Cincinnati. She's gotten into Ohio University. She's waiting on a couple other schools to hear back from. So, until I think she decides where she's going to go and, he has all the options on the table, nothing's been decided yet, but he is certainly someone to look at. But that report was a little premature, as we said on Bucknuts, following that shortly. As you mentioned, Evan Lyle's gone. Cam Burrows will not be back playing football. I'm told. I think he's done with football, period.
That's medical. That's medical.
Yep, that's medical. He's a fifth-year senior. Stephen Collier graduated. His name has been thrown out there. I'm also told he won't. I don't know if he'll be back at Ohio State, but I'm told he won't count toward the 85-man scholarship limit. next year. So that would be another spot right now that hasn't been reported, but, that also hasn't been confirmed. But, I feel comfortable enough from what I've been told and his name being thrown out there enough to kind of talk about him. But, outside of that, I think you have to look at the wide receiver room. There's a couple guys in there, whether it's medical situations, whether it's transferring elsewhere for playing time. I think that's somewhere you have to look. I think the offensive line room is somewhere you have to look. I'm told there might be a linebacker that might be looking to potentially transfer. There's a ton of defensive linemen, especially defensive tackles, I should say, on the roster. And you have to wonder, guys like that. And another name I'm comfortable talking about is Dylan Thompson, because, this year he wasn't academically eligible to play. And, I'd actually be surprised at this point, I think, if he's back on the roster, but you never know. But that's obviously someone that's named out there and, you could talk about. But there's also a lot of defensive tackles who feel that, they may have, they may be down the line in terms of getting playing time, and they may be looking to transfer. And then I think there's probably a defensive back or two that, might be getting over-recruited at this point that you have to look at. So I'd say, those are the areas you need to look. I think there's definitely going to be at least a few more transfers before the fall, or medical hardships and things of that nature. But, that's the nature of the beast. And I don't think Ohio State's going to have a problem getting under the 85-man scholarship limit.
That's interesting information that Stephen Collier will not count against the 85, whether he comes back or not, that he'll be some type of walk-on or student assistant, or if he is on the team, or maybe he'll go elsewhere. That's interesting information that Stephen Collier will not count against the 85. Before I let you go real quick, Ohio State basketball finally got a big win this season. First win of the Big Ten season. They beat Michigan State yesterday at the Shot, 72-67, 22 points from Jaquan Lyle. Your thoughts on the big win yesterday?
I thought it was it was actually a must-win for Ohio State, and so it was a great win. I think if they actually want to kind of flip the season around and have any shot to do that, they needed to win that game yesterday. I saw they were favored by like 2.5 points by Vegas, various lines, and I kind of thought, they're going to win this game because, I don't think with the way they've been playing to make them a favorite, Vegas has to know something that everyone else doesn't, right? They wanted everyone to look at that line and say, I'm going to jump all over Michigan State, knowing that Ohio State was going to cover that spread. And, so I think it was, that's just a sidebar, but I think it was a great win for Ohio State. I thought, obviously, they shot the ball well. They played hard. I think seeing them play hard is something that we really haven't seen too much of this year. And they played really hard. And the guy I was actually most impressed with yesterday was Trevor Thompson. There's times where Trevor looks like an future NBA star, and there's times where he looks like he can't even play, in Bratislava. I mean, he's up and down so bad. I mean, the fouls, the great plays. I mean, it's all over the place. But I thought yesterday he played a fantastic game. He was really aggressive on the boards. He did a great job getting to the hoop with the basketball. He played good defense. I thought he was fantastic, and I also thought Jayshawn Tate was really good, really aggressive in going to the hoop, strong with the ball. I mean, he's not always the best finisher. He's not always the best shooter. He came up with some big shots yesterday. He came up with some big plays, and I just thought he played really hard and helped will the team to victory, along with Thompson and, a couple other guys. And, also, credit to Mark Loving. He had his fair share of bad plays, but he shot the basketball well, especially in the middle of the game to help Ohio State kind of, pull away a little bit.
And he actually rebounded too. I don't know who kidnapped Mark Loving. Whoever was in Mark Loving's jersey yesterday was not Mark Loving, but played well. So hopefully we see that guy again. But we will definitely see Alex Gleitman again. You'll see him all over the front row message board and all over the site this week. Thank you very much for your wisdom, Alex, and thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. I appreciate it. I hope you have a good holiday. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.